All set. This is starting. All right.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Today we have one of our podcast videos, and this time we're doing a recorded one because of the time difference. It would be very hard to synchronize in order to satisfy all the audience, Indian and American, because now we are having actually an Ecuadorian girl in the United States, and her name is Sisa Salgado. And I've known her for about 6 years. The first time I came to Kalamandalam, she was my first roommate, actually. Like in all those scary times, like she was the first person with whom I actually interacted, I guess. She was a great support. And I remember at that time, I was just entering the performing arts. I was always interested in it, but I was trained in international relations. I didn't think I would be a performing artist, but she had already a big experience by that time, being an anthropologist and a performing artist. And I even remember she gave me a couple of advices that her teacher told her, like, her teacher was a Kathakali teacher, right, Sisa? You had a Kathakali teacher.
Kathakali and Bharatanatyam.
Bharatanatyam, yes. And I remember you were telling me that your teacher told you that even when you read a book, you need to sit in a split and read a book. I remember it like, and I was thinking at that time, oh my gosh, I can't believe people can be so fanatical. But then I understand, like, if you are in performing arts, this kind of fanatism and mania is rather a necessity. And now we met 6 years later, and it was a chance we actually did meet. And I'm really happy about it because we already had a couple of online events together, and I'm happy to host her on my channel. Welcome, Sisa. Maybe you can say a couple of words about yourself. How would you like to introduce yourself? How do you define yourself?
Thank you, Irina. It's so nice to talk to you, and thank you for hosting this conversation. It's nice for me to be here. That's true. We met years ago in India, and actually, you also were my first roommate in India. Because for those who have not heard about me before, I am a traveler. I'm an anthropologist from Ecuador, but I have been traveling from different countries for the past 10 years already. And I'm doing a research on traditional dances, especially in Asia. And I started this journey in Indonesia, and I used to live in Bali, very nice neighborhood in the island of Bali. And then in some point, I just wanted to keep exploring other places in Asia, and I decided to move to India. And I arrived to Kerala, and that's how I met Irena. And I did a very short training process in Kerala Kalamandalam. It was very short. It was less than a month, actually. And then I left to the north, to the Himalayas, and then I went back again to Kerala to finish these classes of Kathakali. And yeah, it's so nice. I didn't remember that I told you that about the book. Actually, yes, I studied Bharatanatyam in Indonesia. I had a training of Bharatanatyam for about 2 years. I think it was 2 years with a very wonderful
scholarship program, right? Also, it was a scholarship.
Yes.
Which kind of scholarship is it, and does it exist still? Like, in case people are interested in applying, like, does it still exist, this type of scholarship?
Yeah. So what happens is that Indonesia has of course, a very close connection with India. And Bali, and I think many islands in Indonesia have the consular offices. So where I studied is called the Indian Cultural Center. And that's also where they host the students that they go with the ICCR scholarship, which is translated as the Indian Council
on Cultural Relations.
Yes. So that's part, they are linked. So Indonesian students can go there and study Bharatanatyam, Sanskrit. The Sanskrit classes were amazing and very, very hard. I wish I had time. So I just explore a little bit of those classes that the ICCR offered to Indonesian students, but because I was living in Bali, they kind of let me join, even though I was not officially a scholarship grantee, because in my country, in Ecuador, we don't have that. That's very sad. We don't have access to these scholarships yet.
So to which countries do they give these scholarships?
I think the countries that have embassies, like, or at
Indonesian
least close to
embassies.
us.
Okay.
Yeah. But I did it, and it was a good introduction because I could manage my own timing. I didn't really have a schedule for the scholarship like the other students, but I was training very like as much as I could because it was such a short time, and my teacher was so good. So I used to spend time at least like in the afternoon, like 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes in the afternoons, which was constantly every day. And at the end, we
Wow.
end up performing Bharatanatyam in
I
Bali.
don't think we have in
It was
Kalamandalam this regular classes like 4 or 5 hours per day. Usually we don't get this luxury. So that was a very good course actually. Yeah.
yeah, and yeah. So then I continued in India. I wanted to study Kathakali. I was very ambitious, and things changed. But it was very beautiful experience too. Like just to get introduced to the very difficult and beautiful art forms from Kerala.
Mhm. But what was your particular interest when you came to Kalamandalam? Is it because your teacher studied before there? You had a recommendation from him? Or did you hear from somewhere else about Kerala Kalamandalam? How did you get to know about Kerala Kalamandalam?
So when I was in Ecuador, so I was born and I was raised in Ecuador, and in Ecuador I studied theater. I was not a dancer. Like in Ecuador, I remember my training was basically like theater and from contemporary currents, like teachers that are or masters that are from Europe or America or even South America. We study their books, their techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And one time, one of my teachers in Ecuador, he is from Italy. He introduced us to some traditional dances from Bali, from India. We watch movies from India and also from other countries in Asia. And he tried to introduce us to this wonderful world of traditional dances from the Eastern cultures. And I was fascinated to see the Bharatanatyam. I remember seeing few images in YouTube. And then in the theater school, we studied the travel experiences and the techniques of Peter Brook,
Oh.
who is like a well-known British director and cinema filmmaker. He is also a filmmaker. So he traveled to India in the early 60s or 70s. I'm not sure which year, but he went to Kalamandalam. He went to Kerala to study Kathakali. And he also went to Bali to study Balinese dances. So that was my reference. When I was in Ecuador, I was trying to get information from his travel
Follow
experiences.
the steps of Peter Brook, right?
and
Okay.
and it was funny because when I was in Indonesia and I ended up going to a very famous teacher of Indonesian dances, he told me that he was teacher of Peter Brook. And then when I went to Kerala and I studied Kathakali, I don't remember the name of my teacher. That's so sorry, but he told me that he also met him when Peter Brook went to Kalamandalam. So that was a very nice first introduction. And Kalamandalam is well known all over the world for those who study Asian dances or those who are interested in art.
I
So
think thanks to Peter Brook and Eugenio Barba, actually, Kalamandalam became famous. Otherwise, yes. Wow.
Yeah, Eugenio Barba also talks about them. So I was just like very naive, and I said, "Oh, I want to learn tradition." And then when I arrived to Kalamandalam, it was kind of the first time. No? The second time was easy, but the first one was like a complete shock for me because it was so different from my life in Indonesia.
And what we expect also, right? It's different from what is on the website and on the brochures.
Yes.
Nobody warns foreign students that actually, like, I don't know what was your vision of Kalamandalam, but when I was coming, I was imagining like really, really rural area, and like you live in the huts, and it's like really authentic experience. But then you arrive, there is a highway. It's almost like not even a village. It's almost like a town, like kind of a small town, even though internet connection is still the rural, pretty rural. And then Kalamandalam is very institutionalized school. Actually, it's not. I would say as I don't know what is the word actually. I wouldn't dare to say it's not authentic. Authentic. It is authentic, but because it became institutionalized, like this whole complex of bureaucracy was put on top of it, and it's a totally different approach of teaching, especially foreign students. Since we don't fit in regular program, they give us a separate program.
Yeah, they give us a separate program, and but I think like with my experiences in other countries in Asia, I think Kalamandalam has at least has the some kind of a
yes
difference. Yeah,
yes.
so about the institutions, I said that I think Kalamandalam is a good start. I think
It is,
and a lot of
yes.
yeah, I think, and of course there are things that we can always they can always improve, but in my experience it was like I think you have to build your own schedule and really push to what
and
you
push,
want to.
and push teachers too sometimes. That's in my experience. That was a shock for me actually, because I'm used to my first dance experience was in Belarus, and it was a Belarusian teacher, and then it was a teacher in Stockholm in Sweden, but she was Indian, but she was pretty pedagogical, I would still say. So I was kind of imagining that, yes, I was used to being pushed to, teachers motivating you, forcing you. Here, no, nobody. You have to ask teacher, can you learn this? Can you learn that? Because they don't have like a proper syllabus for us, for foreigners. It's a short course, and some foreigners stay 1 month, like Sisa. Some foreigners stay 5 years. And so I can kind of understand teachers, they're lost. They don't know how to craft this experience for us. So yes, if you're planning to come and study in Kalamandalam, anybody, be ready to know what you want to learn and try to achieve it.
Yes, and also like I think India in general is like that. Like the first time that you arrive there, probably, especially for us, or at least for me, that I was like, I don't know my age, but I was in my 20s.
Those 20s.
In my 20s, and I wanted to, I was very curious about learning other cultures, and I was not ready to face the shocks that India gives you at the very first time, and it takes time. And for me, it was for after I left Kerala because of all these things that happened along the way, I decided to go back. Like really, like as a dancer, you just have to build your own process and try. And I just, when I went to the Himalayas, everything was fine and nice and everything, but I always wanted to see how it will be if I tried and push more, like I don't know how it was for you Irina, but at the beginning when I went to study Kathakali, I didn't really have regular classes or like even other students to be with me. I wish I was with even children studying, but I had one-to-one class with a teacher, and I didn't speak any Malayalam or Hindi. And my teacher was he used to speak a little bit of English, but it was just very complicated to move forward on the techniques and the steps. But the second time I went back there, I was like determined. Yeah, like I had this in my mind. I said I have to finish this, and I also put more effort to understand more the culture and to be less judging what. So it was better the second time. So give it a chance.
they all say, when I was coming to India, of course, most of the people tried to scare me. Like those who studied by ICCR scholarship, they all had some horror stories to tell. how difficult it is, and about the cultural shock, and how much nobody actually cares about you from the teacher's point of view. As you said, from my friends, nobody studied in Kalamandalam, but there were people from Kalakshetra. Even from Kalakshetra, they had the same complaints, even though we know Kalakshetra with its rigorous training and everything, right? So I kind of expected the worst. But I can say with me, Kerala was pretty gentle in the beginning. Yes, my teachers were not very pushy, and one of the advices that I received from the girls who already studied in India, they told me never ask anything from your teacher because they are your gurus. They know when you need something, then they will give you. Like, that's a blessing from a guru. They would say something like that. And honestly, for first year, I was like this. I was like just waiting for teachers to give me this blessing and give me this knowledge. But no. In India, it doesn't work like this. You have to say, I want to learn this and this and this and this, and remind them and say, can we check this again? And this I learned, I think, only after 3 years. That actually you need to ask. I think there is in Bible even the same. You ask and you shall receive, right? So I think it's very applicable here.
Yeah, and also it's like I think for us is also like about time. It takes time too, because it's not something that with Mohiniyattam in your case, or Bharatanatyam or any other art tradition, it takes time. It's like it probably takes the time that you have been there studying, like 5-6 years and even more, to just get to know and to get used to the system. But I think it's good to have our own schedules and just ask nicely, but then just create schedules and ask the teachers, please, can I come here, or can I join the classes with the Indian students even? Like, you just can go back to the class.
For everything.
Yeah, try. Yeah.
Good. And then after Kalamandalam, you went to Himalayas, right? To study Tibetan opera, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So in what happens is that in India is where I kind of figured out what I wanted to do with dance, because at the beginning I was just exploring different traditions. I was feeling very very happy about learning other cultures and having new friends and traveling by myself. I was really enjoying that, but in some point I kind of needed to follow something, like some path, some route or something. And in the Himalayas is where I created this project called the Dance Road. And what happens is that I was reading a lot of scientific journals by the National Geographic and other places like Smithsonian Institute, and mostly about anthropology and cultural studies about migrations and about different cultures. And I rediscovered this route that connects Asia and America through the Bering Strait. And I was just so curious of getting to know more about this particular area that draws the map from these two continents, and especially because I come from Ecuador, and I always felt connected to Asia, like since a very young age, through photographs, through books, and in some point through my own travels. So when I heard about these researchers that they were doing genetic studies among Asians and Americans, I said, I want to follow that route. I want to go through the same places, or at least similar areas. So I saw that I started.
1 second, let me just confirm, maybe somebody doesn't know. What are the findings, these genetic findings that people who study the yes.
Yeah, so what happens is that there are, in our human history, we have thousands of years of migrations and connections from one place to the other, and there is no like such a proven theory that explains the origin of our humanity, but there are several theories, several researches that says that our human species, the Homo sapiens, in some point of our history, we left and we start a journey that took us the whole planet and thousands of years of travelings. So there is one particular route that connects Ethiopia to Asia to America, and it is not one kind of journey, no, but is like different points of history where our sapiens got involved with other human species, and they were sedentary in some point, and they kept traveling. And anyway, so in this research that the National Geographic was doing is that they are doing a mapping, genetic mapping. They are traveling from Ethiopia to the whole route that connects Asia to America. And they are meeting people, groups of people that they have not moved for the past 100, 200 years. So indigenous peoples could be, or other ethnic groups that have not interacted too much with other groups, so their DNA is a little bit more clear. So the findings are that they are kind of relating one place to the other through the genes. And especially among Asia and America, from the Arctic point of view, they discovered that a lot of indigenous ethnic groups in America have similar connections with those who are in Siberia through the genes. And they are not proving that everyone from America comes from the Bering Strait migration, but at least that we are kind of relatives. They are our distant relatives. And there is a particular group called the Chukchis that they live in the Arctic of Siberia, and they do have a DNA that the ones that are called Eskimos in Alaska have too. So these are the kind of connections that they are doing with this mapping.
So you try to trace the cultural connections similarly to this genetic connection.
Yeah, I wanted to do the same journey, but through the dance, and through the dance, learn about other cultures. And of course, it's a very ambitious project, but I just did a couple of points on this route. So for those who want to know more, you can go to the National Geographic website and Google the Geno project. So that's where you can see the map that I'm talking about. So from this map, I just took few points of this map that I could really afford to travel and do my own research on them.
And so basically now this project exists, the dance road, right? As I understand, and it's a functional project. And what has it achieved by now? I know that you are doing lots of collaboration, lots of research. So can you name a few of the programs that you were initiated and the people you connected with?
Yeah, so the project has I like to say that the project has little results along the way. That every time I travel to one country on that route that connects Asia and America, I always give workshops of traditional dances to kids and to teenagers. So that's one of the beautiful things that I have been doing along the way, and because I want to give back a little bit to the community, so I try to teach different dances, and I always give talks to the community, and sometimes they also exchange knowledge and they teach me traditional dances too. So that is one thing of the little results, let's say, of the project. But then in Ecuador, I have been presenting little performances, small performances of the dances that I have learned. So I organized performances of Bharatanatyam in Ecuador. I invited my partner to perform Tibetan dance and music in Ecuador as well for the first time, probably. He was the first. And then I have been doing teachings in universities and talks, especially in my country, because we don't really have much information of what is going on in other parts of the world, and especially in terms of art.
Yeah, that's common.
So I have been doing little activities and giving talks, and then in the embassies of each country, the Ecuadorian embassies of Asia, I have been giving talks, also research, and online. Recently, I hosted a couple of symposiums, art symposiums, where I invited other researchers, other explorers, other artists like you. And so I wanted to create a platform where we can all share our experiences in Spanish. So that's one of my main focus, is just to do stuff in Spanish.
So we have to learn Spanish if we want to be part of your project. Yes.
Yeah. But the social media, I'm always posting in English, but
Yes.
these events online, I have been doing it in Spanish, basically because of the community that needs more information in.
That's your target community, basically. And this dance road actually brought you to Himalayas, to the Tibetan community, right? As I understand.
Yes.
It was part of your project. Can you tell a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, it was a beautiful experience. From Kerala, I decided to move to the mountains, and I went to a very small city in the north of India. It's called Dharamsala. And this city is in the Himalayan range that connects India with other countries, with Nepal and Tibet. And I started a process of learning, not the opera at the beginning, it was just like the folk dances and music of Tibet. And there is a very important institute of arts in Dharamsala, and is in exile. No, the Tibetans that live in the Himalayas, they live in exile. They don't live in Tibet. And this place has a very particular program for foreigners. But I joined these classes and I started learning some songs and dances, because Tibetan art forms are very connected. Like the dances have singing and the opposite. So you have to learn to sing. And for me, it was a very big challenge too, because I never sang in my life. I always had, I was just into academic studies and a little bit of theater and never sang. So I learned a little bit of songs and dances, and then I got introduced to the Tibetan opera. But the Tibetan opera, like any other art form in Asia, is a very deep and difficult process. So I got to learn a little bit.
Right?
Yes. So, but I was so curious and in love with the stories that the operas tell, because are so beautiful, so wonderful, that I always say that if somebody from Hollywood or from a filmmaking world know about these stories, they are so visual, they are so beautiful. Like they could be movies, or you can make animations out of them.
Not only example, just an example, like not maybe full story, but like some small situation in the story.
So one of the operas that I learned, the story especially, and like a little bit of dances, is called Sukinyima, and is about the stories are about the life of Buddha. And these stories are all about kings and queens and princesses, and like usually there is a love story between a man and a woman, and then the woman gets betrayed. Mm-hmm. How do you say, like, by somebody in the family, some jealousy, some auntie, and then this
usual stuff.
Princess, and then this princess will have to go to the woods or escape or even poison. And then in these difficult parts is where these characters find the Dharma, like they find the Buddhist teachings by a hermit or by yogi or spirits of the forest, and they recover, and somehow they don't go back to their life of princesses or princes, but they just become hermits, or they become teachers of the Buddhist traditions. So behind the story of the love story of the king's story, there is a lot of layers of like the Buddhist knowledge that the Tibetans have. So yeah, so there are a lot of little stories related to that kind of thing.
Wow. And do you have any recordings of yourself doing this opera, or maybe that we can include, right?
Yeah, I haven't uploaded them on YouTube. I have my classes. I always like recorded my classes because, after that I had to repeat the steps and everything. And I will have a very funny video that I think I will upload on my YouTube of my teacher teaching me how to sing the opera. Because the reason why it's called opera is because it's just like, let's say it's a westernized way of calling. You have to sing very, very, very strong, and also the woman's voice is, the pitch is pretty high. And I had no training, and because they have like the technique of teaching the opera is like basically the teacher says something and you have to repeat. So they don't tell you like in Indian classical dance, this is step A, B, C, D, E, or like there is no methodology in the Tibetan art tradition. You just have to be there.
Okay, I think it's in Indian teaching. It's also quite common, I would say. Like at least yes, there is methodology, but there is very little explanation. Most of the time, they just show and you repeat. Yes, but you're saying there is not even a methodology. They give you song directly, right? So
yeah. And you have to figure out, and because these art traditions are taught since you are a very little kid, so the children they just know, like it's like they grow up listening to these songs and maybe seeing the brothers or teachers or like other parts of the community performing. Maybe they catch easier, and also the language because the songs are in Tibetan. And so for me, I was enjoying a lot, and even though it was very slow, but I was just like writing the meanings of the songs and the pronunciation, and trying to learn, memorize the melodies, and then the steps. The dance comes at the end, and the dance is pretty simple. It's like not very complicated because the main point of the Tibetan opera is the message, the song.
Okay, so actually you, from being almost a full-time dancer without any vocal training, you went into basic steps, but full-blown vocalist, right? Oh,
yeah. And then at some point I just said, okay, that was a good approach. And also because yeah, it was very beautiful, and I could I would like to perform that little part of the dance someday in a bigger performance. But yeah, so I was like very grateful for that process, and then I continued the journey into other kind of art forms that are more sacred, and I went into the sacred monastic dances. And that was another process I did in the Himalayas, which was completely different from the institution. It was mostly traveling into monasteries and staying there and trying to learn from the monks about the monastic dances, the Buddhist monastic dances. So that's something that I did in the mountains too.
And so they offer this kind of teachings, right? So, or is it any initiation step or rites, or you can just come to them and say, hi, I'm so fascinated, I want to learn the dances? Or is there like a way to, you need to know somebody, a local person? Or,
yeah, all of it. Actually, you have to be initiated in the Buddhist tradition. And at that time, I was studying Buddhism. I was very much, I love spiritual traditions. I am a very strong believer of God in whatever forms and shapes there is. Like there are different traditions that name him or her in a different way, and I believe in something. I am a believer. I don't really have a particular religion, but I always like to explore different spiritual traditions. So when I went to the Himalayas, I studied Buddhism in a very serious way. I will be studying in the morning in a place that they teach you Tibetan language first, and then you go into Buddhist studies. Buddhism is very deep religion, and also especially the Tibetan school of Buddhism is very much philosophical and a lot of debates of logic and difficult texts, and is very much like from the brain. So I was studying Buddhism, and I got some initiations from some monks in some particular schools. So when I went to the monastic dances, I had already some little initiation, some little knowledge, and also contacts. I had
so the doors
very good.
were open for you, let's say, from this. Okay. So
Yeah,
people
and
from the street can't just come in and real this.
but you can see the festivals. There are festivals where they perform the cham dances. That's the name, cham.
Mm-hmm.
And there are cham festivals that everybody can go. And it's wonderful. I recommend you, if you guys are in India, go to the Himalayas and just research. There are temples, monasteries where you can see the mass dances. Maybe in the videos that I have in my YouTube, you can see I have 2 videos of the mass dances, and they are very beautiful. And they are also storytellers. Like, they basically perform these dances before a very big ceremony, so they clean the space, and the dancer is supposed to connect with some forces from the spirit world, and sometimes they get in trance, sometimes people get in trance. Yeah.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. And so then from there, after having stayed in Buddhist monasteries and taken some aspects of the ritualistic sacred dances, what was your journey after that?
I went to, at that point, I took a break of my journey in Asia. I was really a little tired of traveling, because by then it would be 3 or 4 years of traveling constantly. And so I wanted to take a break, and that's where I moved to the US, to New York. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to really do something with all these materials and continue the journey, but in a more specific way, because at that time I used to really take 1 year in one place, year and a half in the other place. In Bali, I stayed almost 2 years, so it was very long. And if I wanted to achieve the Arctic pole, I will have to make it short. Otherwise, I will be even now, I will be doing some other things in Asia. So in New York, I decided to do I focused my research in some particular areas in Asia, and I did my exploration in Mongolia, and that was very short and intense. And I covered different parts of the country, and I focused the research on the nomadic dances from two kinds of places. One is the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, and the other one is the Kazakh area in the mountains near Siberia, near Russia. And this is called the Altai Mountains. So I did my research on nomadic dances, and because they are so connected with the Tibetan culture, it was easier for me to catch a little bit of the lifestyle of the Mongolians. And then the Kazakhs that live in the Altai Mountains, they come from Kazakhstan. They are not from Mongolia, but they arrived in Mongolia after the Soviet Union was dissolved. When they were dissolved, they could escape and they moved to Mongolia. And because they wanted to keep their traditions, because they were Muslims, they are Muslims, and they have a very particular way of living, and they are nomads. And in Kazakhstan, that was forbidden at that time. So I met them, and I did a research on their dances and music. It was also very short, but it was very beautiful. And for that, I have a little bit of visual materials that I'll try to share slowly.
Okay, maybe one last question I have for you about your. I'm actually fascinated about your nomadic lifestyle, And of course, now you're taking a break, as I understood from traveling, right? Now everyone is taking a break. Now Corona is forcing us. But what are the, do you think there's special qualities of personality that one has to possess in order to be able to live like a nomad? Because personally, I was reading about the existence of some nomadic gene in people. So some people are more prone to stay in one, less prone to staying in one place, because they're constantly in this urge to go, to move, to travel. And scientists actually say there might be some gene responsible for that. But do you think you belong to these people? And which kind of personality traits actually help you to be on the go? Because it's not easy to be constantly out of the comfort zone. It's not easy. You're constantly challenging yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I wish that there is some research about. I am going to read about this research about the genes.
I was reading somewhere there is like a nomadic gene in some people. Yeah, and there is actually one psychological condition they call it dromomania. Dromomania. Yeah, they consider it a mania. It's a psychological disorder. People can't. They're restless until they move, but then many of them, they don't have like psychological implications. So how to say, it's coming from a genetic predisposition. They're predisposed genetically to that. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, in my case, I was not like that. Like I grew up in a very stable place, in a very stable city. I'm the only child in my house, so I had like a very comfortable area to live, to do whatever I wanted to do. And I think that was the point, because I was so stable and so nice. Everything was fixed and beautiful, and something just called my attention of just exploring something. But I think I call it when you travel for the first time, and it's like it bites you. It's just, you like it, or maybe you just decide to go back to your place. But I think I have met a lot of travelers that they say that the first time they travel, they got the impression that they want to get traveling, they want to keep traveling. And I don't know how to call it, but it's just like something that it fills your heart. It's just, it gives you happiness, or feeds your soul in some ways. So in my case, as a woman, and coming from a country where it's not very common to see women traveling by themselves, I will say that what is needed is just determination. And maybe make a plan also, because sometimes people just dream about doing things, but they don't really write it down. And I will just say, write down, like make a plan, even if it's not going to happen. At least you have it maybe in front of you in your desk or in your studio, or like put a photo of the place where you want to go, or keep researching and meeting people from that place. Like start giving the little baby steps, and if it's meant to happen, I think things will work out. Yeah, but I really believe that you have to start for some actions, like just try to do something concrete about your dream. And I was really interested in Asia, so my first step was to check scholarships. That's the first thing I did to travel. I was checking, not because of the money itself, but because at least you have some kind of a support system at the beginning of the travels.
Yeah. And it's important, and very often. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So determination, and also patience, and also a lot of understanding and being very open, because in my case, it was a very long process to be relaxed and not worry too much and not judge other things that for me were strange or different. Just be very open of learning everything as much as you can.
Yes, very, very needed kind of stand of gratitude and acceptance, I guess. If you're choosing this kind of path, in order not to be disappointed, you need to little bit adjust your frequency, right? Towards, okay, I accept whatever I encounter on my way, right?
Yeah, and also like trying always to be careful, no, and always research. I think the key of a traveler, and especially a traveler with a purpose, and for us especially that we are into arts, um, like research the places and other experiences of other students, other artists that they have already done the same thing or similar things. So and also being generous, like if somebody asks you for help, let's just share the
Share,
contacts and
yes.
just why not?
Especially information,
Like
right? It doesn't cost you anything to share that certain scholarship exists, a certain way exists. You can always tell to people, and then maybe on your way you'll meet somebody who will tell you the things that you need, right? It happens like this.
guys, girls, please be generous with information, because if somebody asks you, it's not your competition. It's not
Yes.
because they are going to become more famous than you or something like that. They need help. And I remember the first time I went to Indonesia, I asked a friend of mine, uh, because that person already went there, and I was like, oh, please, can you help me? And I need a contact. And they were not very helpful at the beginning, because they said, oh, you have to go through your own experience. And I was like,
Some
no.
people say like that. I know. It's like, I'm not gonna share because you have to find out yourself. And you're like, what? Yeah.
No, share.
Yeah, please share, exactly. And I honestly think karma will pay you in a good way if you share, if you're generous. Karma or dharma, I don't know, something will find you, right? Oh,
That's
great.
true.
Thank you, Sisa. It was a very, very lovely and generous talk that you gave and experience that you shared. And we will finish off here because it's already an hour, I think, more or less. And yes, please check out Sisa's YouTube channel and her Facebook and Instagram. I will write down everything. I will include her coordinates, and hopefully we'll have more live talks in the future on other subjects as well. And all the best in your project. I know that you also acted in music videos, right? You try different aspects of not
Yeah,
only.
a little bit. A little bit. I kind of I'm very interested in videos. Like I'm exploring some other things, and I just recently helped my partner to do like a music video where we were just telling the story. And I'm always thinking on people that we don't understand the language of different countries in Asia, and we want to learn about the stories, not only the music. And yeah, I have done a little collaborations like that. So yeah, thank you, Irina.
It's great when you can actually, in my opinion, implement this kind of traditional art forms in a new stream, right? Because yes, it's important to keep the traditional ways as well, to keep them to monasteries, to keep them to traditional schools. But then, as we're saying, information itself, it doesn't cost anything. And once we release it, it can take any form and shape it takes. I mean, the universe directs it, or people's will direct it. And in this way, I think we actually need to be accepting towards experiments, towards this kind of new age collaborations, right?
Yeah, and technology is just there. Like and I think right now with these months of safe isolation and being home, I think it's a good
Years.
opportunity.
Is it months? I think it's been years already.
Yeah, right.
Almost a year.
I'm not counting, I'm not counting this year in my age and my dance road project.
We just exist.
I'm not.
We just exist. But yes, continue
Yeah,
doing what we love. Yeah. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
but yeah, thank you, Irina, and I hope your projects continue growing, and I love to see the videos that you are uploading on the YouTube of Mohiniatam. I'm interested in learning something there. It's so cool. Thank you for uploading information. I think everybody should be following these updates that you are doing.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, dear. Okay, thank you so much. So we will conclude here. Please, everyone, stay tuned. There'll be more live talks, there'll be more guests, and do check out Sisa's portals. She's present everywhere on all social platforms. And also, if you're not subscribed to my channels, please subscribe and like it and share with your friends. And we promise to deliver you very interesting, deep, and engaging content on art forms, on personal development through the art forms, and personal experience as well. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you. Bye.